Hello you, my name is Circadian and this is an attempt at least at a tutorial series for Crusader Kings 2. And I haven't given this any real preparation at all, which is a bad idea because it's one of, I'd say two things about CK2. It's the greatest strategy game ever made, and it is without any shadow of a doubt the most complicated strategy game ever made. There's just well, alright, there's probably worse examples. I'm overreaching, but this game is labyrinthine, and it defeats any kind of planning, really. I could sit here with a bullet point list of all of the different things that I want to go through, but it would just overcomplicate things. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to ramble, and for some reason I've convinced myself that this might actually be effective. So couple of other points just before we get started. I'm playing here with all of the DLC turned off. So this is for vanilla CK2. The DLC alters the games in all kinds of different ways, and what I'm going to be seeing is something which I'm very unfamiliar with as well, so that's also going to add to the general air of confusion and cluelessness. But yeah, so for example, you can see here when you click start game, you get these options. Choose your starting era, and two of them are unavailable because you require the DLC. And if you want my opinion, I think the first DLC that anyone should buy for Crusader Kings 2 is the Charlemagne DLC, because it opens up the earliest start date, so basically you get much more game. I believe Charlemagne also opens up the Viking Age start date. I don't see how it couldn't. But we will go with the High Middle Ages. We'll start in 1066. So you click through to that, and the game will give you various suggestions. You have a little bit of descriptive text here about what's going on, and then there are all kinds of various mods that you can play as. You can play as William the Conqueror, go and chase achievements for conquering England and this is a historical simulator. When you select a particular date, you get a fairly good approximation, sometimes a very good approximation of the actual historical kind of political and military environment at that time. So, in 769? No, in 1066, William the Conqueror is invading England from France, and you've got Harold Hardrada coming in at this direction, and you can play as Harold, and you can do all kinds of things. You've also got the Holy Roman Empire. You've got, I don't know who you are. We've got some Arabic characters over here, Muslim characters, who I wasn't expecting actually. I thought that was all DLC logged. Shows what I know. But we're going to go to custom game setup, and the reason for this is because a lot of those default starts are actually quite tricky, and the best way to learn how to play, and this is kind of widely accepted canon really amongst the CK2 community, is to head to Newbie Island. Now where's Newbie Island? It's the home of my forefathers. It is Ireland, and in 1066, Ireland is kind of fragmented. You don't have a lot of the kind of consolidation. So if you look here, England has a proper king, although it's also getting shat on by the French and the Norwegians. We've got the Holy Roman Empire. This is like a huge block with a really kind of complicated feudal system, and we'll be getting to that. Ireland doesn't really have that. Ireland is still essentially lots of little places. Mumu has been joined up. We've got Ermamain and Thermamain, Ormond and Thormond. We'll deal with the Gaelic pronunciation later as well, very incompetently. That's under the reign of one ruler, this guy, King Murkard of Mumu, and we could play as him. And in fact, well, actually no, because typically I will always start as Desmond. This is my preferred start, but might be easier for the purposes of this tutorial to actually start as the King of Mumu. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense actually. So we're going to do that, and that's enough rambling. Let's just get stuck in. So we hit the play button, and then a bunch of options will turn up, and we don't really need to worry about too much of this stuff. We can just leave it all as default. Iron Man's on, everybody's happy. Start game, and we're away. So let's begin with the monumental task of explaining what the hell's going on. You begin with this screen here, which gives you general information about the game. It's not particularly informative. I mean, I suppose might as well have a quick look. So you play as a succession of medieval rulers from a single dynasty. There's no set goal. You cannot hold infinite amounts of land for yourself. True. We'll come to that later. As a ruler, your first priority is to secure an heir. Very true. Again, that'll be an urgent priority. Crusader Kings 2 is a pausable real-time game with gratuitous capitalization. Don't need to know about that. And finally, Crusader Kings 2 takes place on a fully 3D map. Well done. Not interested. This is a much more important screen. So, the character you choose, depending on where you are, sometimes these are real historical people when you can click through to their Wikipedia pages. More often they are just kind of dynasties that the devs have possibly sourced from real life, but the actual individual characters aren't real historical figures. But wherever you are in the world, you will be playing with a culture and with a government type, which is kind of appropriate to the time and era. So we're playing as an Irish Catholic king. We also your character has a rank, and the first thing that we need to establish here is that you don't play as a country, you play as an individual human being. And I mean, technically you're playing as a dynasty, but at any given time you are one human, and your success or failure depends upon maintaining the line of your family, your dynasty. So if you don't secure the succession, if you don't have an heir to your dynasty, that's game over when you die. Now, fairly obviously, the way to make sure that you do have an heir is to get lots of babies happening. And after a couple of generations, your dynasty will be large enough that you're never really going to be wanting for heirs, because there's always a cousin somewhere. The downside of that is that cousin is always trying to kill you. So, swings and roundabouts. But this screen, as I say, is very important because this will give you the general idea of the specifics of your dynasty's business. And as I say, it's mostly to do with the government type and the culture. So we're Irish, no special features, just bog standard Irish. There's nothing unusual about that. You play as the Norwegians, you can go become Vikings and go and do raiding. If you play as Muslims, there's lots of kind of religious aspects to it. And sorry, the religion's actually handled down here, of course, on the Catholicism bit. But yeah, there's definitely individual cultures which have specific rules attached to them. The government is more important. Now, the two main government types are feudal and tribal. We are feudal? 1066. Apparently we're feudal by this stage. Normally, in the 766, 769 start, the Irish are tribal, which has a very different set of challenges attached to it, but we won't get into that now. In 1066, we have gone feudal, so you can see there's a long list of all the various things that means for you, and I'm not going to get stuck into that now. It's way too kind of granular detail for us at this point. And then there's Catholicism. As Catholics, certain things apply to us, and again, it's useful to know you can get at this screen at any time. Hopefully you can see the mouse pointer. I can't imagine that you wouldn't. OBS must be doing it. But yeah, this is your kind of character window up here in the top left. This is your dynasty button. So if you click that, you get stuff about... No, actually, my bad. You get stuff about the kingdom rather than your individual dynasty. If I click this, you get you. This is my character screen. This is all about me, and we'll be talking about that at great length shortly. But just this little nubbin on the top left here, if you click it, that brings that page up, and that's useful information. You should store that. So let's talk a little bit about the interface. Is that the right way to start? We're going to zoom into Ireland here. Here's the land. So first thing to note is that over here we have a mini-map where you can see all of the world. We can scroll in and out. But above it we have these 15, 20 odd buttons, no 15. And these are the map modes. So currently we're on the terrain map mode, which just shows you the bog standard trees and mountains and what have you. And then we have various ones which give us lots of information about the state of the world. So we've got the realms, which colours everything according to the kind of the top liege. So we're the petty king of Mumu, which actually means we're a duke. There are 4 levels in the feudal system, and this applies to every single culture. They get different names in different cultures, but there's always 4 levels, and they're Count, Duke, King, and Emperor. Weirdly, in the Irish culture, sometimes a duke is called a petty king, which isn't helpful, obviously, but it's just the way it is. So we're a duke level, but you can have independent counts who have no liege above them. They're just independent. You can have independent dukes, independent kings, and you can have emperors. And you can have counts who are vassals of... so let's say, for instance, if we have a look at Oxford, bad choice. So this is all... God, have you got... Mate, there we go. Get rid of some of your... Get some vassals, man. So here we have Duke Leopold of Kent. He's a duke. And on this screen, you can see he has vassals, although they're not counts, they're bishops and mayors. We'll deal with that later as well. Get used to hearing that. You'll be hearing that a lot. But he has a liege. He is the vassal of King Harold II of England. Now, Harold has lots... now, if you click on Harold, you can see that on the... in England here, you can see all of his territory is glowing. The little border there. So that's Harold's stuff. He personally holds 8 counties, which include Oxford and Wiltshire, and you can see when you click on them, his face appears here. However, if you go to Surrey or Sussex, then it's the Duke of Kent who holds this area here. He is a vassal of Harold, which means that he has to contribute troops to Harold when Harold calls him up. He has to pay tax to Harold, but also he has a kind of a degree of independence, and you can play... We're playing at the moment as an independent duke, but you can play as a count or a duke or any level with a liege above you, and you kind of have to, you know, you have to keep your liege on side, and you have to provide to your liege when he or she makes demands, and so on and so forth. So where was I? I was explaining the... Well, I wasn't explaining the character screens, but I think maybe that's the best thing to do next. So we'll talk a little bit about the character screen. Here I am. This is us. Here we are. King Murkwood of Mumu, of the Brian house. So this is the dynasty. If you hover over it, you'll get a bit of descriptive text which tells you about that. And we can click through and get more information about the dynasty as it stands. It's currently 15 living members. I have an heir already, so we'll get rid of this. As you can see, I'm independent, which is how I think I went off on that little tangent there. I don't have a liege here. That's great. I have an heir. He's my son. And if you click on this family tab here, you can see that I have 3 siblings, one of whom is already dead, died age 50, elder sister. And then I have 2 half-brothers who potentially might have a problem with me, but we'll see about that. I'm 39 years of age. Born on the 1st of January, 1027. At the start of the game, everyone's born on the 1st of January, very much like racehorses in that respect. Here you can see my 2 titles. So I hold the Petty Kingdom of Mumu, which is this area here, currently. And this can get complicated. We'll come back to that later. I also hold the County of Thurmond. Trust me, I think that's how you pronounce it. And yeah, I want to say as well, one of the drawbacks of playing on Newbie Island is that you do have to deal with Gaelic pronunciations, and that's pretty challenging, but the rest of it's easy. That means I have a vassal. I have the Count of Ormond, who is Earl Ranvald of Vedrefjord, who... That's a very Viking-sounding Irishman right there. And in fact, you can see here, so if we click on me, one other thing to note, I'm Irish. That's my culture there. That's where the culture is displayed. My vassal, Ragnar, is Norwegian. I'm not entirely sure how he's come to be my vassal and get land over here, but I mean, that's Vikings for you, you know. But he's subservient to me. He is, not to put too fine a point on it, my bitch. But I will at some point probably try and get rid of him, because I don't really need a vassal there. I'd much rather just hold that land myself. I particularly don't need a Norwegian vassal spreading his weird Norwegian culture. Anywho, back to the character screen. So what have we learned? We've learned about the titles, which are displayed here. We'll come back to claims and diplomacy later. The more important stuff. So up here we've got this, the house name, and you can click through. The religion, which is displayed here, and the government type, which is displayed here. We'll come back to that. Next up, we should talk about these. These are my personal stats. So every character in the game has 5 statistics, and they are in order: diplomacy, martial, stewardship, intrigue, and learning. And like a par will be probably around 9, so I'm pretty bad at all of these things. It's a bit of a ropey character. That's going to cause problems. Now the numbers next to them are your state diplomacy, and these are affected by your counsellor and also, although I don't have one, your wife as well. I think your wife stats, I think you get half of them applied to you, so, or your husband if you're a female character. But your spouse's stats also get applied on. But I have counsellors, and we'll come back to those later, and they also add to the state diplomacy, which is often the number which gets applied when these things are used at a state level. So you kind of have personal interactions where the personal stats are vital, and then you have the state level interactions where these become more important. Quickly, these affect various things. So the diplomacy obviously, has a big impact on how people feel about you, and a lot of this game is about your personal relationships. So a high diplomacy will reduce that, and you can see just on the flyover, the pop-up tip there, that my diplomacy is 3. I have a base of 6, but it's been modified by 2 of my traits. I'm slothful and deceitful. You'll have to take my word for it, and that knocks 3 points total off of the thing. Martial, fairly obviously, is fighty stuff. Stewardship is incredibly important and is mostly to do with, well, 2 things. First of all, your taxation and how effective you are at claiming tax and making money, which is a big deal. But also, the size of your realm is dictated in quite a large part by your stewardship stat, and that's really important. Every character is limited in how many counties, how many vassals, just how much the word is domain, which is spelled stupidly. D-E-E, I can never spell it myself, D-E-M-E-S-N-E, domain, yeah, makes sense. And that's, as I say, the size of your domain is kind of dictated in part by stewardship, so it's a very big deal. You then have intrigue, which covers your sort of spying and murdering and assassinating skills, which are all very important. And then finally learning, which impacts mostly on your technology development rate, which is a lot less important in a game like Crusader Kings 2 than in your average strategy game, but it still makes a difference. But this isn't like a game with, well, it is a game with a skill tree and a tech tree, but they're really not as important as they would be in any other game where tech trees are kind of like, the be all and end all. That's not really the case in CK2. And then, so that's the 5 main stats. We should quickly run through these. So these just give you basic information about various numbers to do with your character. So your domain size, I can see my domain size is 1 or 2. I have 1 county under my direct control, which is Thormund, right? Yeah, this one here. This one is not under my direct control. This is a vassal, so I can have 2 counties under my direct control. And if you hover over, you can see the ruler stewardship bonus, a +0, and also Gavelkind and stuff. We'll deal with that later. Below that, we have the vassal limit. I have 1 vassal, the Norwegian dude, and that's altered by my laws and not by my stewardship. But you can have up to 20 vassals, so we've got plenty of room to spare there. Next up is my army. I have 627 troops. Is that a lot? I don't know. I don't play as a 1066 star. It doesn't feel like a lot, but yeah, it's quite rare for me to start on 1066. I'm not entirely sure how good that is. I suspect it's not amazing, but I'm the only 2 county ruler in the entirety of Ireland, so I'd hope that I can militarily stomp on everybody else. We'll find out in the fullness of time. Wealth is your ducats. 63.102. I'm making plus 1.55 a month, which ain't brilliant, but it's not bad. And we'll talk about the ways in which that can be altered later. Prestige and piety are the last 2. And again, once you mouse over, you see these things. And these are all also displayed up here. So up here on the top right, you've got wealth, you've got prestige, you've got piety, you've got domain size, you've got vassal limit, and you've got realm size. And also score, which is mostly a function of how much prestige you get. So that is frankly irrelevant. It's not a game where you're really chasing high scores. That's that. All very good. And now we get to what I would probably say is the most interesting part of the character screen, which is the traits. And we'll look at me first of all. So there's kind of 3 areas here, and they are, well, this one here shows you your combat modifiers. So individually, this is how you are in combat. Because one of my traits is Craven, I get a big negative to my morale defense. We ain't going to be fighting for a while, but that's what that does. And Craven, much like I mentioned earlier, I'm also, as well as being Craven, I'm also slothful and deceitful. I'm a real piece of work. These are all displayed on this line here. So these are my personal character traits, and every character gets one of these to start with. This is your education type. I am a tough soldier, and so for each of these 5 stats, there are 4 grades of education stats. So you will specialise in one of them, and you'll get a bonus in that stat from that specialisation. You can only specialise in one. And they, as you can see from the 2 little pips there, this is the second of 4 available grades. So I'm a tough soldier, which isn't great. It's not embarrassing, but I'm a bit shit. And as you can see, I get +3 martial from it. I lose 1 learning from it. Get a bit of health and a bit of personal combat skill. Personal combat skill displayed over here. No, it's not actually. Why is it not saying? No, it should do. Never mind. That's always there for every character. It'll be one of 20 different types. And then to the right of that, we have your kind of your general, well, there's the sins and the virtues and other character traits. So as you probably know, there's 7 deadly sins and there's 7 virtues which counter them. And I have one of each. I am slothful. I am shockingly lazy. This is true, to be fair. Acedia, the 4th deadly sin, is an altogether negative trait, and you're not wrong. As you can see, that is a -1, a malus, as they say, of 1 for each of the 5 skills, and it also means that my vassal opinion is -5. So all vassals dislike me, not even a little bit, but quite a lot, because I'm a lazy git. On the other hand, I'm humble. I mean, I should be, because I'm clearly an absolute complete heel. Humility, or humilitas, is the 7th virtue and opposite of pride. Humble characters gain piety, where the proud gain prestige. Prestige is better than humility. Pride is better than humility. But there you go. At least there's something positive to be said about me. Get +1 piety a month. Woo! Piety's not that useful in my opinion. Same trait opinion and opposite trait opinion. So people who are humble like me more, people who are proud like me less. The other 2 are not good. Craven is very not good. I'm a coward. -2 martial, -1 personal combat skill, and that's why you don't see the personal combat skill here, because it's negated. So the +1 I get here is -1 to there, so I just end up on 0 and it doesn't say anything. Morale defense of -20, so when you're leading troops into battle, I'm not going to get into martial stuff right now, but just very quickly, when you're leading troops into battle, a lot of it's down to your troops' morale, and your morale defense dictates how quickly that sort of dissipates. It's a bad thing, you don't want that. And then again with the -5 vassal opinion, and on top of that I'm deceitful. So big boost to intrigue, but a big drop to diplomacy. And my opposite trait opinion is -5. So all told, if we look at my, let's have a look at Ragnvold, the dude. If we hover over, so you see here it says opinion. The tables aren't particularly well aligned. I don't really want to get heavily into this page just yet, but maybe we should. So opinion, if you hover over the number, that's his opinion of me. And you can see all of the modifiers that dictate that. So he's content, which is a +25 to his opinion of his vassal, which is pretty cool actually. I'm warming to him now. Content is a nice trait to have in your vassal. All these things all kind of combine together, and it ends up on +7. And you can certainly have minus numbers. It goes from 100 positive to 100 minus. And when they get into the minus numbers, they're going to start thinking about having you assassinated and having your children assassinated, and just generally, you want to keep people happy in this game if you can. It's definitely good to do that if at all possible. So we've done a lot of the character screen here. I think these buttons here, you've got family and then relations. We should talk about my heir a little bit as well. So I have an 18-year-old son. If I die, I will start playing as Brian. King Brian, good name. We'll look at him a bit later. You also have the relations screen where friends and rivals will develop throughout the game. fairly obvious how they will play out. Marriage ties is to do with your kind of half brothers and stuff. I don't look. You won't be looking at the relation screen. You can also have lovers. Vassals we've talked about. The court. So there's a lot of people at court. 27 in my case. And this is where you can see all of their numbers. And quite a lot of them hate me, you'll notice. So here I am. That's Merkid. This guy is a dynasty member. He's Lorcan. If you hover over him, oh yeah, he's my half brother. That'll be why he hates me. So these are the various reasons why he hates me, and the big one is he's a title claimant. He reckons he should be the petty king of Mumu, and so he's probably going to think about killing me. There is a big. If you kill a family member, and people find out about it, you get the kinslayer modifier, which means everybody treats you very, very, very cautiously, and nobody really likes you anymore. So that's a disincentive for people to kill their half brothers. Now we've got more of the Ubrian family. So this kid here, for instance, he just generally doesn't like me because of my many negative traits. But yeah, so all of the family show up here. Men, there's mostly men. Where are all the women at? Bebin, she's a cool chick. She's my aunt. She's 77. Blimey, she's doing well. Many people live that long. Wow, yeah, I'm not popular at court. Malachi, my nephew, he likes me. No one else does. Wow. My chancellor is reasonably keen, and my steward. But yeah, so yeah, all of the court people. So we've got, and we'll talk about these. So these are the councillors. So we've got the court chaplain, the spy master, the steward, the marshal, and the chancellor. These correspond, you'll note, to these 5 stats here. And yeah, let's go and take a look at them. Just quickly, pacts, don't have any, and abroad, doesn't matter. Let's look at the council. So this button here brings up the council and makes the murmuring happen, which is kind of irritating. Wow, my council's really good. So here you can see the skill. You have the five councillors, which correspond to the 5 stats, and this number here on each of them shows the relevant personal stat to the job that they're doing. So the Chancellor has a diplomacy skill of 15, the Marshal has a martial score of 13, the Steward a stewardship score, etc., etc. And yeah, these guys are all actually really good at what they do. Now, what happens on this screen? Interesting. The DLC adds much more to this than I'd expected. This is actually kind of cut down. Quite like this. It's better like this. This screen on a full DLC game is needlessly complicated in my opinion. But yeah, here just kind of basic and vanilla and good. So various things that you can do. So first of all, I can click the appoint button. I can sack this guy and I can appoint somebody else. And this will bring up all of the people in my court and rank them according to their diplomacy score. So as you can see, he's comfortably the most talented Chancellor, and the same will probably be true for the other positions as well. It's always worth checking. I have 2 potential chaplains with the same score, but I don't see any reason to mess with it. These buttons here just prevent your Chancellor from leading armies. So if you put one of these councillors in charge of an army, they can no longer perform their councillor duties. So sometimes you'll want to, particularly with the Marshal, you'll want to forbid them from doing so. But more importantly, we've got these 3 buttons here, and these are different for each one. These are tasks that you can assign to your councillors, and I'm going to quickly run through them. So the Chancellor himself has 3. Improved diplomatic relations, so you can send him to a county and he will butter up the local nobles. And as you can see on the pop-up here, there's a possible outcomes list for each one. That gives you the statistical chance per year that one of these things will trigger. So you can either improve or sabotage relations, but because he's got a very high diplomacy skill, he's much more likely to improve than sabotage relations. If you put some kind of cloth-eared dimwit in charge, he will probably cause offence and ruin everything for you, and you'll see kind of a reverse of those stats. That's 1. 2 is fabricate claims, and it's been a while since I played without DLC, but I'm reasonably certain that this is the case, that this used to be a lot more important back in the day when Crusader Kings 2 was first released than it is now, because when you want to take over a county, you need to have a legal justification for doing so. It's called a casus belli, and it used to be that they were really hard to come by, and the only real way that probably the easiest way of getting one was to get your chancellor to fabricate one. And it's slow. As you can see, my quite talented chancellor only gets a 15% annual chance of doing so. So you think about rolling that dice at kind of 8 to 1, 7 to 1, 7 to 1, or less, sort of closer to 13 to 2. But it's it's a long shot, and so you're rolling that die every single year, and you can wait a long time to get a claim fabricated. Fortunately, as time has passed and they've added more DLC, they also changed the base game when they do that, patches and what have you, altered it, and there's been many more ways added to the game to give you a pretext for war. So fabricate claims is no longer as important as it once was. Finally, So Descent, and to be honest with you, I've got thousands, well, certainly hundreds of hours in Crusader Kings 2. Yeah, it's not thousands, I think it's about 700 or 800. And I don't think I've ever done this. So yeah, you can do, and if you want to cause trouble, that's a way of doing it. The Marshal has 3. I'm going to have you improve, and we might as well assign them. So you go, and I'm going to have him improve diplomatic relations in Ermamain, which will mostly cheer my vassal up. That's the goal. So keep my vassal on side. Certainly no need to be fabricating claims. I don't think I might regret that if I'm wrong about the ease of invading other counties, but I don't think I am. The Marshal can do 3 things: suppress revolts, train troops, and research military tech. I wouldn't worry about the research military tech. I don't think you're ever going to need your Marshal to do that, because he should be doing one of the other 2. As you can see from suppress revolts, you get a revolt risk in a county. Certain events happen which increase the revolt risk, and it can just generally be provoked. Certainly counties that you've recently conquered are more likely to revolt. If you have a different culture, they're more likely to revolt. If you have a different religion, they're a lot more likely to revolt. And so sometimes you want to have your Marshal doing this. More often you want them training troops, because that just gives you a boost to the number of troops that you have on hand. And you remember earlier I said I had about 627 or something like that, and that will probably boost it by 10%, something 32.5, so possibly more. So yeah, we could get up to like maybe 800, which is starting to be respectable, I think. The Steward: collect taxes, oversee construction and research economy tech. Again, the economy tech, I can imagine there's situations where you might want to do it, but not many. Oversee construction is really useful. It just makes building a lot quicker, and we'll talk about building in the domain, in building in counties in a bit. But mostly you're going to want them to collect taxes, and again, that's done in your capital county here, and that just gives you a boost to your monthly balance. It won't trigger until we roll time, which we're still some way from doing. Spy Master is interesting. So Spy Master can scheme, build a spy network, or study tech. Now, studying tech is actually useful for the Spy Master, and I'm going to quickly get into this. We'll talk about tech later, but the others, like the research cultural tech and the research economy tech and military tech, they're not so useful. But basic studying technology gives you a kind of across-the-board technological boost, and is really good. But sometimes you'll want to build a spy network, which increases plot power, and that will come up when we deal with intrigue. But essentially, if you want to get anything done in a kind of spy kind of way, it's governed by a metric called plot power, and increasing it can make all the difference. So sometimes you want to build a spy network in the place where you're trying to do that. And then we have scheming, which increases your chance of discovering other people's plots, which again can be useful, especially let's say that your character dies and your heir is a 2-year-old. So your dynasty is in a regency period, and all of your relatives are trying. You're a 2-year-old baby, and the heir to the kingdom, the newly crowned petty king of Moo, and literally all of your relatives are just trying to smother you all the time. It's the only thing your family want to do is to make sure that you get pillowed, and that will happen. So plot discovery chance is really important sometimes. Probably not right now though. So we are going to send our spy master to study technology, and traditionally we do that. Oh, am I out of Diplo range? I am. Traditionally, we would do that in the Byzantine Empire, because that's where all the technology is. And opinion differs on whether you want to send them to Thrace or whether you want to send them to Constantinople. There's a theory that if you send them to Constantinople, enemy spy masters are more likely to find you, and if they find you, then they're going to kill you, and that sucks. So Thrake is generally the option, but apparently I don't have that kind of Diplo range, so let's instead send them to Venezia. I reckon they've got some good tech. I mean, in theory, it should just be anywhere which has superior tech to you, and I don't think it makes any difference at all. But I'm not going to stick my neck out and say that for certain. Finally, we've got the court chaplain, and this is kind of in the who cares. Well, I suppose for Catholics it makes a bit more of a difference, but it's probably the least important of the five. Improving religious relations does make a difference, because for Catholics, and I think this is going to lead me into the next section, it's good to keep your bishops and general clerics on side. You can also proselytize, so if you have a county which is not the one chosen religion of the true people, Catholicism in our case, then you can send your chaplain out to go and sort that out, although quite often the locals will just kill him. And then there's research cultural tech. We will have him research improve religious relations in Thermond. Did I fail at that? I think I right-clicked. Yeah, there we go. So let's talk a little bit about what happens in the county, because that's the religious stuff leads into that. So if you click on an individual county, you can see this page appears. So this is for our capital county, the current capital of Thermond. And what you have in Thermond at the moment is 3 holdings. This is the main holding here, Bunnerate. And there is also the Bishopric of Kildalua, which is Kildare, I don't know what, and the city of Limerick, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Now, as a feudal, let's go back to this, I'm pretty sure it will say it here. As you can see, as a feudal government, you can hold castle, fort and hospital holdings without penalties. Also, you can build temples and cities, but you can't hold them. There are penalties for holding them. And if you, let's say you conquer somebody else's place, you will immediately take control of all of the holdings. Let's say we take Desmond, which I fully intend to do. Once we capture Desmond, we will become the lord of all of the holdings here. So not just the county capital of Dundershide, but also the Bishopric of Clun and the city of Cork. Now there's penalties for holding bishoprics and cities, so you will hand those off to vassals straight away, and because the penalties are basically pretty sucky, and also they will all count against your domain size. So technically, it's not the county that I hold that is the 1 out of 2. It's specifically this holding, the county capital of Bunnerate, and you can see in the domain here it's listed along with some numbers. This thing here, this is the I can't remember what they called it. It's the information tab, and you can customize this, and it will tell you various things that are going on. You can also make it go away, which is very useful sometimes. So if we click on the county capital of Bunnerate, we get this screen with lots of bells and murmuring, and this is where you can kind of do building. So remember earlier we were talking about the stewards and how the stewards can decrease construction time. This is where that construction is mostly. There's a couple of others as well, but they're very much secondary to this. And so by spending ducats, we can improve various things. And just quickly, the real key for feudal types, these are, if you're tribal, these are all quite different, and well, you know, that's for you to discover. But let's say, oh, where did sound go? All right, I'm not going to complain. Unless I just muted it, did I? No, I don't think I did. That was weird. Oh, it's back. Oh, that's worse, isn't it? Oh well, never mind. Yeah, so as a tribal government, this is what you will expect to see. These will be the same for almost all of them. Castle shipyards depends on you might not have castle shipyards if you're playing on a very early start, because you won't have developed shipbuilding yet sometimes. And then at the bottom you have your kind of your cultural specific military type. So for us it's the Galaglass heavy infantry, originally Scottish, but that's the kind of Celtic cultural guys. If we were to go and look at English, I think they have longbowmen, housecarls. Oh, because what culture are you? Anglo-Saxon, so they have housecarls, and yeah, it depends on your culture. Oops. So we can spend money to increase these if we had the money. They're red. I don't only have $63 at the moment, so I can't even afford these. Some of them are also limited by the technology that we have. So you can see if you mouse over the red thing, it will tell you why it's red. And here I don't have enough gold, but I also don't have the technology. Oh well, no. No, well, it's technically limited by the technology. I haven't built Castle Walls 2 yet, so until you've built Castle Walls 2, you can't build Stables 3. The very brief rundown on this is most of these things just increase your your military size, your levy. But the ones which are really important are the ones which increase the money, the income, and those are castle fortifications, castle walls, and castle town. Now, the castle town is what really does the business. You need castle walls upgraded to build the castle town, but that should be your priority as a feudal leader, is to keep your castle town as large as possible, because that's where the cash comes in. You actually get slightly diminishing returns from it because it's a flat increase in tax income for each upgrade that you have, but they're still definitely worth pursuing early doors. So that's how that works. However, you also have the bishopric, and the bishopric and the city both have vassals. So if I click here, here's Flaithry. Alright, so I'm just going to show you again what I did there. So rather than clicking here, I've clicked in the top left, which is the kind of the dynasty flag for Flaithry. That's actually well, no, it's not, is it? No, that's actually just the holding flag for the bishopric of Kildalua. I was wrong. Now I have a revoke button here. We'll click it. I could revoke this. This would bring the bishopric under my control. It would sack my vassal, Flaithry. He'd be pissed off, but no one cares because he would be just a nobody now. He's no longer a bishop. He's just some angry bloke. But all my other vassals will also be pretty unhappy with me. So we're not going to be doing that. Plus, I don't know. Maybe he's all right. He's a bit of a tit, isn't he? He's not that good, but what can you say? But yeah, he's a cleric. He's a religious guy. He's a good Catholic, and he will generate an income of his own. He will pay some of that to me as I'm his liege, but mostly he will just kind of sit on the money and hopefully use it to develop this stuff himself, so he can build his church town up, and he can build a monastic school, and hopefully he'll get on with all of that. You can do it yourself, but I wouldn't recommend spending money on other people's holdings. You want to make sure you're spending money on your holdings, because then that money will fly, the benefit all goes directly to you. And it's rare that you'd have sort of buffed this to the point where you don't have anything else to do. Same is true of the city. The cities have a baron, a mayor, my bad. Feudal life is complicated. So here's my mayor, Dinatach. He is also, as you can see, I'm his liege. He doesn't like me very much, but no one does because I'm awful. He's also an imbecile. That's not good, is it? So here's a fun trait. Weird mix. He's a master spy. This is the top grade spy that you can get. He's an elusive shadow, but he's also an imbecile. So it's a weird mix, and he's also trusting. This guy makes no sense. Chaste, gregarious, and greedy. All right, but yeah, this is kind of how your holdings work. You can choose to build a new holding. It's expensive, and you'd want to build a castle because you can keep the castle as long as you've got the domain limit to sustain it. You can build another castle with another castle town and get a lot of money that way, and it's good to have castles. You can either go wide or tall with your development, and so going wide is just invade everybody and have the top level holding, the county capital, in each county that you hold. Or you could just keep it tight and have a sort of small area where you build many more holdings. Eventually more slots get opened up as your kind of technology develops as well, so you can kind of increase the number of castles you have. So you could just have like one county but just be really powerful within that one county. But it's better to invade people, in my opinion. I think that's covered most of that. We're not going to worry too much about this stuff here. That's not wildly important at the moment, and we need to move on. Let's quickly take a look at the second button on this list then, the laws button. There's a lot going on here. 3 main tabs: inheritance, realm, and obligations. And we should talk about inheritance first, because the way inheritance works is crucial to the game. You've got to ensure that your inheritance is good, and Most feudal characters start with the type of inheritance, because there are various different succession laws. You can see them here. These are all different laws that are available for selection if you satisfy certain conditions. And then there's the gender laws as well. But mostly, especially in this kind of area, you're going to be starting as a Gnatic Gavelkind, which is frankly a bit of a pain in the arse. What it means is that on your death, your titles will be distributed amongst your children, which you don't want. So let's say that we conquered all of Ireland, all right? And we... Explaining this is going to be tricky. When you're conquering, let's say we've conquered all of Ireland, if we had successfully created we're a petty king, but the actual kingdom of Ireland, and I'm going to get sidetracked here. Let's talk about the de jure feudal system before we get into inheritance. I think that's the best way of doing it. So we click on the county here, and then click onto this. We can see the county page for Thurmond. So this tells us various information and gives us a few buttons that we can use. So you can see here the line of succession. There's Brian, and then if Brian gets killed, it passes to Concobar, my half brother, and then you see, and this is, you know, he's trying to kill him, he's trying to kill, they're all trying to kill him. Standard. You get some kind of information down here about the holder domain. If I go to Ermamain, you can kind of see his domain income and city tax. But we will keep our attention on Thurmond. We have buttons here for destroy, make primary. It's already my primary title. You can show a list of current claimants. There's nobody with a claim outside of the line of succession. Sometimes you'll have people outside of the line of succession who have a claim. They can fabricate claims as well, so you want to worry about them. And then you have the history button, which I've never really looked at, but I think just tells you. Oh, look at that. Halcyon Actor. So this dude who was born in 330 AD, god damn, that's incredible. I didn't know you could do that. That's really cool. So yeah, if you want to get some fake history going back 500 years, it's all there for you to check out. But what really matters, and what isn't signaled by default, is the de jure button. So landed titles have a de jure hierarchy that never changes, representing ancient and traditional geographical regions. And this is really important shit. We're going to click it, and now you see the big change, the only change really, well, these two have flipped in order for some reason, but these buttons appear up here. So this is kind of the hierarchy of where the county of Thurmond exists within the kind of ducal kingdom and empire levels. So it's part of the petty kingdom of Mumu. And de jure, this is all, well, it should be de jure, this is all part of the petty kingdom of Mumu, including this. And that's kind of why we'll have a claim on this, because it's part of my kingdom, technically. It's not actually part of my kingdom. He's an independent count who's living his best life on his own, but he should be my vassal. The petty kingdom of Mumu is part of the kingdom of Ireland, which is all of this. Now, there is no king of Ireland. We can create the kingdom of Ireland if we hold 51% of the de jure counties and also spend some prestige and gold and piety. It's then part of the kingdom of Britannia, which is the whole lump up here and bits of this as well, I think, which holds England, Scotland, and so on. So let's talk about the conquest now. If I go and I conquer all of Ireland and I make the kingdom of Ireland, oh, you can see from here, by the way, so the kingdom of England and the kingdom of Scotland exist. The kingdoms of Ireland and Wales do not. Let's say that I was to conquer all of Ireland and then I made the kingdom of Ireland. I would be the king of Ireland, and when I died, my child would inherit that kingdom. There's only one kingdom, so it would go to the direct heir. But let's say I didn't do that instead. Let's say that I conquered all of Ireland, but I just held all of these 5 kingdoms. So you've got Ulster, you've got, which is up here, you've got Mumu down here, you've also got Leinster and Meath and Connaught. If I held all 5 of those duchies, and I died and I had 5 children, each would go to one of those kids. And I would only be one of those kids. My heir I would only control one of those heirs. The other 4 would just end up in other people's hands and we'd lose control of them entirely. So that would be intensely bloody irritating. Unfortunately, I've got to go do something really urgently, so I'm going to have to put a pause in the video here. I will hopefully come back to this shortly and maybe make more sense of that. But for the moment, thanks for watching. That was part 1. Part 2 coming up.